Well, hey, North Park Community Church. Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we are in chapter 5. We are 2 messages away from finishing up the book of First John. And our text today is going to be looking at chapter 5, beginning in verse 4 and going through verse 12. There it is. Now, we are coming off of a long passage on love. We call it the love discourse. That really began, was that right around 3:10ish or so, all the way to 4:3ish, roughly. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about the role of love within the believer's life, where it comes from, coming from God. God is love. Beloved, when we abide with God, His love becomes manifest within us in the way that we live, and therefore our love for the brothers is a testimony to the veracity of our profession of faith in Jesus. And so that's what we're coming off of right now. Really, the bulk majority, the bulk meat of this letter. And now we've got a little bit of a transition. However, whenever we talk about a transition into maybe a new point or a new emphasis, we always have to remember that this is not a hard stop new thought. This is a continuation of what the letter has been all about this whole time. And so there's a tremendous amount of continuity between the text that we're looking at now and everything that's been said before. We're really getting into just kind of a significant, almost kind of therefore kind of passage. And so with that said, let's go ahead. Let's look at what we got. For everyone who has been born of God. This is a repeated concept. So therefore we're gonna see how has born of God, family of God, children of God, how has that theme been developed throughout the course of this letter, and then overcomes. Okay, so this is another repeated theme here. This is the what we got right here is the Greek Nikao. That's what it is in the Greek. Sometimes we think of Nike. Overcome, conquer. Okay, world. Okay, so this concept of world, we've seen this quite a bit in this letter as well. So, so this is we could summarize it as creation in rebellion, creation and rebellion to God. Okay, so if you have been born of God, you have overcome, you have conquered that which is in rebellion to God, and this is the and this is the victory. This right here, victory. This is really the noun, Nike right here. Okay, so same thing. Same concept. This is the victory that has overcome. Okay, the world, our faith. You know what? We're gonna just do a little pivot here. Start highlighting just the time when we've got the same Greek word being used. Okay. All right, so there it is. We've got a concentration of the same Greek word being used, Nike, Nikao, and we just remember John uses his terminology very precisely. Okay, so Then we got world again here. And this is it. It's how have we overcome? Our faith. Okay. So the victory, the overcoming, the way that we have acquired, we could say, the way we have acquired the victory is through our faith. Now, I'm just going to make a little note here. And here's the note. There have been numerous verses in 1 John that sound out of context, that is, works based. Here, the emphasis on faith is key. Okay? So, for instance, earlier on, there were things like if you don't love other people, then God clearly is not in you. Statements like that, and then and so there's a number of verses that if you kind of just single them out, they very much sound like you need to be doing these things in order to be a Christian. And now we have pushed back on that concept repeatedly, because those verses are always couched within grace. Grace is woven in and out of this whole letter. But here we just have just a very clear declarative statement that your victory is through faith. Okay, and then it comes down again and just continues that same thought. Who is it that overcomes the world except... Okay, so we got... Let's just notice repeated language here. So we have world, world, world. And then we have faith, believes, which again, same Greek word, in which we're going to be pisteuo, right here. So pistis, faith, pisteuo, believes, same root word, pistis. And so there we go. This is kind of our beginning. Well, that wasn't. This is kind of our first thought, I suppose. And if we would say first thought, how should we put it? We could put in just some good reformed language there. Saved by grace through faith. Okay. So it's grace because it is through the person and the work of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. His what he has earned has been attained through faith and belief, we could say. So that's just a summary statement there of that first section. Now, it continues, it builds. And so this is he who came by water and blood. Okay. Water and blood. Not confusing at all, is it? This is he who has come by water and blood. Now, here we go. Key is the and, because look what it says next. Jesus Christ. Okay, this is the he is Christ. Now, look, not by water only, but by water and the blood. So now we got the definite article here. The water and the blood. So you have the definite article. Which means that it's referring to a particular water, a particular blood, and meaning there's a clear referent that this is hearkening to. Now, so what we just kind of observe here is that emphasis on not water only, but water and, underline, blood, that it indicates something to us about the errors being slid into the church because John feels the need to clarify and emphasize the significance of the blood. Okay. So it seems that the fact that Jesus came by water is agreed upon. What it seems that there is not agreement upon is that Jesus has come through the blood. And so what we need to do then is we need to answer the question, what does water and blood refer to? That's the question. There's obviously, whenever you have a passage that is not clear, that means there are a number of possible interpretations, and probably very smart guys with PhDs who all seem to believe that their understanding is the right one, and there is not agreement. And so some will take water and blood to mean Jesus's birth and his death. Birth meaning the amniotic fluid, and some people would correlate that to John chapter 3, where Jesus says you have to be born of water and the Spirit, meaning you have to be born twice, born as a human being through the waters of the amniotic fluid at birth, and then born a second time through the Spirit. That's what people would say John 3 means, and then they would say here, Jesus was born by the waters of amniotic fluid, and but he also came through his own death on the other side in the resurrection. Another idea that's out there is that the water refers to when Jesus was pierced in his side. This, remember, is in John's Gospel. So same author, and John's Gospel is the one that records of Jesus being pierced in his side, and as he's pierced and the Spirit is withdrawn from his side, it says that water and blood both gushed forth. And so people say that the water and the blood is a reference to that, the side piercing and the water and blood that flows from that. Some people will see this as a connection to the sacraments of baptism and the Lord's Supper. baptism, meaning, you go into the waters, you come out of the water, and then the blood being obviously a connection to the cup. What is missing in that is any kind of connection to the bread and Jesus's body being broken. So those are some of the ideas. I think the one that is the most traditional understanding of this, I think probably what most commentators kind of agree on, and I want to do some grappling around with this before I make any kind of definitive suggestion as to maybe what I think this is after. But the traditional view that's out there, I think by and large, would be that the water is a reference to Jesus's baptism. It says that John came baptizing in water, but Jesus will baptize with the Spirit in his baptism in particular, which was kind of the inauguration of his messianic ministry. The Spirit descends upon Jesus. The Father says, "This is my Son with whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him." And so kind of the traditional view is that the water here in 1 John is a reference to Jesus' baptism, and then the blood being kind of the other bookend of his messianic ministry, meaning his death on the cross. And so kind of a suggestion here would be that this is what John is wanting to persuade his readers of, is the testimony about who Jesus is through his messianic ministry, kind of inaugurated in his baptism, culminating in his crucifixion. So that's just a little bit on that. So it says, it goes on to say, and the Spirit is the one who testifies. Now, right here, the Spirit is the one who testifies. Just important note is this word for testifies right here is the Greek. It's a derivation of the Greek martyr. So a martyr is a witness. A witness is one who testifies. And John uses this word a lot in his last writing, the Revelation, in which he will talk about the martyrs in different ways there, and so this is so. Again, these witnesses are those who testify of Jesus Christ, who he is in his work. And then because so many of those witnesses who testified to the gospel were put to death, the word martyr got associated with those who die for the faith. But in the original Greek, it was someone who testifies or bears witness to, or so forth and so on, like that. So we have that showing up here, and this is going to give us a need for another kind of combing through. I grabbed the wrong one there. Of repeated word. So let's just go ahead and do that here real quick before we go any further. Testifies, or three that testify. These three agree. Testimony is the same Greek word. Testimony. 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 And then we also have, going along in there as well, believes. 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 Okay. Okay. All right, coming on back. So, so let's move on from this right here. The Spirit is the initial testifier, Greek martyr, because the Spirit is the truth. John uses Spirit of, or of truth, often in his gospel. So this is familiar language regarding the Spirit of God. You would have John 14, 17, 15, 26, and 16, 13. There you go. For now, there are three that testify: the Spirit. There are three. Okay. Number one, Spirit. Number two, water. Number three, blood. There we go. And these three agree. Okay. What is going on here? Well, shocker, many thoughts. What I think is maybe really persuasive is the legal requirement of 2 to 3 witnesses to primarily to make a claim against somebody. Kind of in Deuteronomy, it very much is about convicting somebody of a crime. But it could be used in a more of a neutral sense as well, just where the testimony of two people has validity because there's multiple witnesses to it. So to the okay to how do I want to put this to validating a legal claim. We'll go with that. Okay. So what John is saying is that we got 3 witnesses. The law requires 2 or 3 witnesses. We got 3 witnesses, and here are the witnesses. Number 1, if you take the traditional view of the water, you have Jesus, who many bore witness to the Spirit descending upon him, the Father's voice coming from heaven, and that witnesses to it. You have the crucifixion, and subsequently to that, the resurrection, and we know from Paul that hundreds saw the risen Jesus after that, bearing witness to his death and resurrection. And then there's the role of the Spirit, which who is involved in both Jesus' baptism and his resurrection, but also potentially we might want to ask the question: does this have a reference to Pentecost and the ongoing how should we say work of proclaiming Jesus to the ends of the earth, seen through the Spirit's work in the church? And so, and then, so that's out there. Again, I'm gonna want to read and think before I say anything more definitively on that. If we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. So this right here is a form of argumentation. So form of argumentation from reasoning from lesser to greater. Okay. And so and this is Deuteronomy up here. It'd be, and there's a whole heap of passages that refer to this. You take 17:6 there as just one. It's in Jesus talks about it, about taking two others along with you if there's a charge that needs to be established. Paul talks about it in 2 Corinthians. Paul says that if you bring a charge against an elder, you have to have the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So it's throughout the scriptures. But here's the idea. If men can substantiate a claim, how much more trustworthy is God's claim? Okay. If we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. Now, I will say there is debate around this as well. Some will say, is this disciples? Is this church? Is this men in general, like Deuteronomy? Okay, so there's still even some debate about that. The testimony of God is greater, for this is the testimony of God that he has borne concerning his son. Okay, so that right here leads me to connect it right here. So God's testimony is these three that agree. Okay. The Son of God has the testimony in him. Whoever believes in the Son of God has the testimony in himself. Whoever does not believe in God has made him a liar, because he has not believed in the testimony that God has made concerning his Son. So this right here, John says hard things all throughout, and again, this comes back to these three. Okay, and this is either true or not. If not true, God is lying, because this attestation is from him. Okay. And this is the testimony that God gave us, eternal life. The testimony is eternal life. And this life is in his Son. And this is some very John-like language. For one, just see John 17. You see that kind of life, unity, connection. Yeah. Whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life. Um, okay. Now, what I would probably argue here as well is we probably have another delineation in this passage that's going to kind of go right there, where you see the testimony of God. So this right there, and then we kind of see in this bottom section we kind of see the testimony in believers. So when the testimony of God has gotten into the lives of his people, how those all kind of correlate around together, and that's all just flowing from faith. Faith is kind of the dominant theme in here. Belief in the testimony of God in Jesus. So there's a lot to be said here of the objectivity of the Christian faith in a culture that is very pro pluralism and relativism and subjectivism, and so there's I think something to be said for that in this passage, and that's a objective truth is something kind of falling out of favor in the broader cultural context, but we as Christians, we love objective truth. We live on objective truth because objective truth is found ultimately in the object of our faith, who is the triune God through the gospel of Jesus Christ, and through the work of God in the lives of people through His Spirit, and we need to proclaim that this Sunday. So overall, this is a really great passage, a very encouraging passage, something that should affirm and encourage our faith, and I hope that that's what comes about from this. So now, as you saw, there's some tricky stuff, but I think we'll be able to work through it by God's grace, and draw the strength from this passage that I think the Lord would intend for us to have. So with that, I love you, church. I can't wait to see you on Sunday, and God bless.